welcome to the show Meet the Artist. My name is Emma and I have the honor to meet the most talented singer, songwriter and musician in US. We are recording those episodes here in Nashville, and today I have the honor to meet the award winner, producer, musician, songwriter and singer, Jordan Taylor Moed.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much.
When you came in and we were kind of talking previously, I was like, you were telling me about your podcast. I'm like, that's so cool. I'm like, and then you're like, do you want to be on? I was like, absolutely. So thank you for having me on here.
I'm happy. I stopped by last week, and I had the class with you.
Yes.
We did the
Da Vinci. Well, no, it was the podcast lab, right? We did the build your own podcast trailer.
the podcast trailer.
That's right.
Which I don't have a trailer, so I need to build the trailer for season 2.
We'll get you one.
Yeah, after that class, I will make one, and thank you for your help.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit, where are we? We are in a different place. So I decided to record the episode here. I know I had all the previous episodes recording somewhere else, but you are working here, and that's where we met.
Yeah.
And we're at Created Studio.
Created Studios from the heart of Franklin, Tennessee.
Yes.
Yeah, so Created Studios was basically the birth from Full Sail University's founder, John Phelps. And this was his vision to give back to the communities, just a way to provide a hub for creators, whether you're a musician, you're a filmmaker, social media influencer, or maybe you want to become one of those things. This is the hub, and this is just the very first one, and it's already been pretty amazing couple months. We've only been open for 2 months, and
wow.
I know there's some very big plans for this concept with Full Sail. And I just hope if you're in the Nashville area, you come check it out because it's a pretty amazing spot.
It is amazing. So it's at the entrance of Walmart, which is super interesting. People are walking outside, but now I can't listen anything from outside.
You can't hear anything. Yeah,
anything.
It's not like you can see people walking, almost like Good Morning America vibes.
And it's so loud outside, but we're here. It's super quiet, and you have a Dolby Atmos studio.
We do.
At the entrance, you're doing an open mic every Friday. That's
Yes,
amazing.
Oh man, last night was fun too because we had these younger kids who came in. They were probably about 16 or 17, and they played "Creep" by Radiohead, and they had I want to say 20 or 30 people come in, just sit there and hang out with them. But what was so cool is
That's cool.
I remember when I was 16, I'd be happy if I had 5 people watching me, These kids had a full crowd in there, and they were just loving every second of it. It was super cool. I love seeing that community, and it was just really cool. Yeah.
So this place you said is sponsored by the university you went, right?
Yeah, Full Sail. And I did graduate with a music production degree in 2017. Basically, the idea when they put this together was to bring in some Full Sailors who have been working in the industry in the area and has done some stuff, that's not just go to school and then, just hang out and do their own thing. No, it's people who actually went off and did some cool things. And when I got the call, I was kind of surprised because I was like, really? Okay. And then basically I came in for an interview, and there was John and a few of the other higher ups, and Andrew, who's our studio director, who I love him dearly. He's a fantastic guy and even better human being in every possible way.
That's great.
Everyone from the Full Sail community is just some of the most genuine, great people you'll ever meet. And just every step of the way, they always found a way to, show you the vision for what they wanted to do. And I was like, so what am I doing here? And they're like, well, we kind of want you to kind of run the day-to-day. What do you think? Right. And I'm like, are you serious? Yeah, I'm in.
So you're the one who is managing.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
That's
and it's
perfect.
been, like I said, it's been pretty cool, just...
It is cool.
Just to walk in here every day and be like, yeah, I get to go here every day for I have my own studio outside of this, which I'm sure we'll probably touch upon, but it's just cool waking up every day. Just all I do is write music and help people produce their own.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you did study in Orlando.
Correct.
That was for...
music production predominantly.
Music production.
I minored a little bit in music business and actually received some awards for music business degrees in there.
Cool.
It was a wild time, Full Sail. for people who don't really know, Full Sail is like a real world education style school. So what that means is when you go there, whether you're going for film, video games, or music, you're going to go there with the mentality of this is what it's going to be like outside. Like, so like they prepare you for that everyday life. And if you do it right, the degree correctly, it shouldn't feel like any change coming to anywhere you go.
Right.
Whether that be back to your hometown or Nashville, LA, London, wherever you're going, you're going to have that same grind mentality of, oh, I'm back in school. So, or I just never left school because I'm doing what I love. And so it is constant 12-hour days. It's, very few days off. But you love what you do, so you don't really look for those days off.
Right.
It's always just like,
I
what can I
agree.
do today?
I'm just gonna write music all day.
Exactly.
But you grew up in New Jersey,
Correct. Yeah.
right? So you're growing up in New Jersey. When do you start playing guitar?
So
Because you play guitar, right?
correct.
That's your first instrument.
That was the very first thing I ever learned. So I grew up in like a somewhat musical house. So like my dad was a drummer in a Christian rock band. He didn't really pursue it very far. My mom knew piano, but nothing like crazy. It was funny though. I was basically living a normal life growing up in a suburb, and one day my dad won tickets. I'm trying to remember the story, and if my dad is watching this, forgive me for forgetting the story. But basically, they somehow managed to get free tickets to go see the band Kiss.
Oh.
And I was like 7 at the time, so I was very young. And my mom was like, "Are you sure we should be bringing him?" He's like, "Yeah, of course you'll love it." So they bring me to the show, and I remember the first second of the lights going down, and they came out, and it was like the original 4. And I just remember hearing that opening guitar riff for Shout It Out Loud, and I just remember going, this like shock wave hit me. Like I will never forget that feeling for the rest of my life. It was like a moment of just like everything in my head clicked of like, this is what you're going to do with your life. This is the moment that you realize the dream and everything. And since that day, I have just been on a relentless path to make that dream a reality.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's so weird how sometimes God will just hit you with like that moment. And 7 years old, how many kids out there want to be a rock star? But then like, I was like, no, what do I got to do? What's the actual breakdown of what I got to do to make this happen at 7 years old?
So after you go back to the house after that concert, you told your dad, I wanted to play electric guitar.
Yeah, I was like, because I was so obsessed with Ace Frehley, and I was like, Dad, and both my parents, because they were both there, I was like, I want to get a guitar. And they're like, okay, well, we'll talk about it. Maybe down the line, when you're a little bit older. I'm like, okay. So I just kept asking for it, like for Christmas, or I'll save up money. But I didn't realize, how's a 7-year-old going to save up money for a guitar? So it was a few years went by, and I was like about done, ready to give up the whole hope on it. And all of a sudden, it was Christmas morning, and my parents kind of pulled the whole Christmas Story thing on me, where we did all the presents, and they're like, oh, did you get everything you wanted? I was like, yeah, for the most part. And then my dad's like, what's that under the table? And it was this gigantic box, and it was presented to me. So I was like, okay, this is wild. So I opened it up, and it was a reindeer box, like an external reindeer box. Okay. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then I opened it up, and inside there was an Ibanez Geo. And I'm a lefty, which is very hard to find a good lefty guitar because I do everything lefty. But my dad found an Ibanez Geo guitar, and since that day when I picked it up, I just felt complete. And I remember running upstairs, and I was trying to be Kiss. I was trying to be AC/DC, doing my best Angus Young impressions. And
so how old were you that time?
I think I was about 8 or 9. So It was a couple years after the Kiss show, but I was still very young. And I jumped into lessons right after that, and basically just kept trying to pursue that dream as any possible way I could.
What other bands were influence for you as you were growing up, except Kiss and AC/DC?
Growing up, I was very big on the 80s hair metal stuff. So like I loved Motley Crue. I adored them. Anytime they came to town, I was the only like probably 14-year-old, 13-year-old kid in the crowd with a bunch of like moms from the 80s, and I probably at that time could have out trivia'd all of them. But AC/DC was a huge influence on me. Bands like Wasp were really big, LA Guns, Guns N' Roses, and just like the classic rock vibe. And that's really where I started building like what I wanted to do. And I wasn't, writing music really that young. I was trying to put together things, but I was really more just trying to understand how the guitar worked and how to use it in a way where it looks good on stage. Like the stage presence was always so important to me because I had the best, I looked at something, I'm like, Ace Frehley, Angus Young, some of the best performers of all time. I'm like, that's what I got to do. So how do I do that? And just spending every day trying to replicate the moves while replicating what they're playing on the guitar. And I did that for close to 7-8 years. And before I even got into a legitimate band, I think first band I ever got into that was like serious, I would say, like an actual band that we tried to do something, I was probably 16 or 17, and it was a heavy metal band called Horseman 5, which was like a horrible name, by the way. But, we thought we were cool, and it was a heavy metal band, and we all dressed up like, I looked like Nikki Sixx from the Shout at the Devil era, so I had all the leather studs, the teased hair, and man, we just go out and just travel the East Coast. We played Delaware, we played Jersey, we played Connecticut, New York, anywhere that people would take us. And it was a really great time. It was great, especially being that young. And like I think when we started actually touring, I just graduated from high school. So my parents were a little like, are we sure we're going to let him go do this? Like, we know where that leads to. But my parents were so cool about it that they were like, dude, go pursue this. Like, you want this so bad, go do it. And it was the best decision of my life.
It's important when your parents support what you're doing, especially with music.
Yeah.
But how the decision when you were 17, 18, came to go to Florida? Because that's also a big decision. You went to different states all by yourself. And how did you pick that place?
Yeah, so funny enough, I actually didn't go to college right outside of high school. So I spent, I want to say 3 or 4 years, 5 years, just touring in bands and just traveling. And I had a shot when I was just out of high school. I had a shot to go to the Musicians Institute in Hollywood. So sorry. And they were going to let me in for like an independent artist program. And my parents were a little reluctant to allow me to go there because they're like, that's pretty far away. So that was like the only real roadblock I really had was they're like, you can't go to LA. Sorry. We don't want you doing that, which really grinded my gears because I was a real ticked off teenager with a lot of angst who just wanted to go live the Hollywood dream of all his heroes and stuff like that. So I was like, all right, well, in retaliation, I'm just not going to go to school and I'm just going to keep doing this rock and roll thing. And that turned out to be a great deal because I ended up playing with bands like Accept and bands like Trapped and a lot of other bands of that stature, and just got to do a lot of really cool shows, a lot of really cool moments in my life, like shooting music videos and photo shoots and just traveling and just living that dream. And then funny enough, as we segue, a couple years later after I left, I was going through a few bands. I ended up writing a song that was called the Hampton Jig. It was like a Elvis-y style hard rock song that actually garnered some attention in the East Coast tri-state area that actually landed on a record label's basically radar, and they called me and the current band I was in at the time in for a meeting, and they basically were like handing us a contract to sign us. And, I'm probably 20, probably about 21. And they were like, yeah, we love this song. This is huge. Like, we needed to work with you on this. And we ended up not signing, I don't remember why, but we ended up signing a distribution deal with them. And because I think the idea was I didn't want anyone really owning the rights to these songs because I knew the potential. And even at that time, like, what 21-year-old is studying like that? Like, it's crazy. But but essentially I was just like, no, I want to make sure we always retain our rights. And basically they signed a unlimited distribution deal for us, and we could just release whatever we wanted to. And so when that happened, I was like, okay, well, I'm making it to the big times. Like, we're doing it. And then all of a sudden I started watching a lot of movies again and stuff like that. I kind of stepped away for a little bit with that because I was so busy. But then I started realizing that I went back to like some of the original reasons why I loved music so much was when I was growing up watching movies and stuff like that. Listening to music was always so cool, and I loved that like aspect of movies. And I remember one day I was sitting at my apartment and I was just sitting there going, that'd be a really cool thing to kind of pursue, like being able to write music for, television and film. And I was watching the Top Gun movie, and one of my favorite guitar players of all time is Steve Stevens from Billy Idol. And he actually did the Top Gun anthem, and on that DVD there was a whole thing about the soundtrack. And he talked about sync licensing and things like that in there. And he goes, if you're a musician who's not taking advantage of sync licensing or is not even in it, you're already at a disadvantage. And I remember hearing that going, okay, say no more. I'm ready to go find out how to do this. And
so you started that before you got to university?
Yes.
Oh,
which is even crazier because a day later, I'm not making this up. This is absolutely how it happened. Was a day later, I get my mail coming through, and I go down to look at it, and there was a pamphlet for Full Sail University. And I opened it up, and I'm like, Full Sail? What is this about? So I called my mom thinking maybe she was dropping hints on me to go to school. Because my mom would do that. And I was like, did you send me info on this? And she's like, no, why? And I opened up, I'm like, it looks kind of cool. And so I basically just sent a message out, or like I sent him an email saying, hey, I'm kind of interested in learning more. And I remember they called me literally a day or so later, and they're like, so like, what makes you want to go to Full Sail? And I kind of explained the whole situation of what I did and how I was like, I really just want to understand how television music works and film music works, and why that career seems to be so, kind of niche, and I want to learn more how to do that. And they're like, you seem like a perfect candidate for this. And so I flew out to Orlando to go check it out. And I remember sitting there just taking it all in, from the back lots to the studios to everything in between, from the Full Sail alumni, who they were and what they did. I was like, okay, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm at the starting line for this dream to actually become a reality. And that was the moment where I knew I had to go do it. And so I just dove in head first. And the best advice I got when I first got there was, and I don't remember who it was, but they just came up to me and said, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. So if you just want to coast by, cool. That's what you're going to get out of it. But if you want to actually take this seriously and make this dream your career, you're going to do it here. And that just like lit a fire under me that I'd never felt since that 7-year-old watching Kiss perform. And I'll tell you, Full Sail was intense. It was 7 days a week for the most part, and you're in studios every single day. Like, it's not like you're taking tests or reading books. You are literally every month you're either scoring or you're writing music or you're learning about softwares or you're in the studios producing. Like, it was really intense, but it was worth it because it really got me to where I needed to be.
So did you learn there more about sync, or you learned by yourself?
So when it came to sync, like, they do touch upon it. So like there is a class where like you basically get tasked to write a song for the WWE, and you basically have to write an entrance theme. And if it's good enough by the end of the month, because you only get a month to do most of the stuff, they will personally actually submit it on your behalf, which is like, that was like all I needed was an opportunity. I was like, okay, now I have the opportunity. Now I got to make this good. And funny enough, that was like the same month we were getting hit with, I think it was Hurricane Irene or one of those hurricanes. So I finished my track the night the hurricane hit, and then my power at my apartment went out for like a week and a half. So I was like, well, luckily I got it done. But I remember submitting it, and then my professor, who was just so cool about it all and stuff like that, he actually did submit it to them. And to my knowledge, if I remember correctly, that was my first sync placement somewhat, even though they never used it. But it did get into the, I think like the NXT library or something like that with WWE. And I was like, that's really cool that was a career. And I remember my professor's like, if you like doing this, let me give you some links to check out when you graduate. So he sent me like a bunch of links to kind of look into and some companies to check out. And essentially when I graduated, I just forgot about it. I'll be honest with you. I forgot all about it, and I just threw it in a drive, and really started focusing on like what my next steps were in my career I was about to take. And I came out here to Nashville with my who my wife is now, but was girlfriend then. And
Oh, you came together from Florida.
yeah, just to come check it
that's
out.
sweet.
Yeah, just to come in for a weekend, check it out, see how it was. And one of my buddies was living out here, just moved out here, and he was kind of showing us the sights. And I just and this was probably about 4 months after I graduated.
Okay.
And I was like, this is like the coolest city in the world. I mean, it was like there was just buzz going everywhere. I've never felt that in my life. Like every corner is just
Music.
this unbelievable buzz of music and amazing music at that. And I'll never forget that. And I was like, and I looked at my wife and I was just like, I got to come out here. I got to do this. And this has got to happen. And I looked at, and I just basically prayed to God. I'm like, if this is meant to be, please provide a way. And within like a couple weeks before I was getting ready to move out, so I went back to Florida for a couple months to get myself kind of prepared. My wife wasn't going to move out yet because she was living in Philly at the time. And essentially, I remember I was getting ready to come out here. I had a job lined up at like some little brewery. It was like just a basic serving job, just to get myself started. And my buddy calls me and goes, "Hey man, there's a really cool opportunity I think you should jump on if you're going to be here in time." And I was like, "Okay, well, what is it?" He goes, "There's a rehearsal studio here in Nashville that's looking for a lead sound engineer, and I think you'd be pretty good for it." So second I moved to town, I was talking to a couple bands to join in at that time anyways, and one of those bands ended up being there at this rehearsal studio. And they're like, "Come check it out." So I ended up meeting the owner that day and everything like that. They showed me around. Apparently he had gone to Full Sail at one point, so it made sense. He loved that it was another Full Sailer in-house, and he goes, "I'd love to hire you." So within like 2 weeks of being in Nashville, I had a studio job, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And that studio, was incredible. I got to work with like guys like Billy Sheehan from Mr. Big and Dave Lee Roth. I worked with some guys from Mastodon, Tom Kiefer of Cinderella. Like all these guys were coming in the studio, and like John Lodge of the Moody Blues came in for like a weekend. Like one of the nicest dudes on the planet, by the way. And just got to just hang out with them and just be almost a fly on the wall. Like, and just be the engineer in the house, and all I'm doing is
you learn a lot.
Yeah, you're just setting up live sessions for them. That's all it is. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was such a cool experience. I was in another band at the time too that just released a record that ended up going on tour, so I ended up having to leave the studio, and we traveled the country, mainly in the East Coast. We were doing a lot of East Coast runs and kind of trying to get that band to go big, and then literally I was doing that. It was awesome. Like loved every second of it. I was like, man, we're really seeing a full circle thing here. And then COVID hit.
All right.
Yeah.
Affected everybody.
Everybody. So at that point, COVID hit, and this is right around the time, right before COVID hit, I had started with my roommate at the time. I was putting together like a little home studio that I was going to start kind of getting people to come in and use. And it was, which then turned into my studio that it is today, is called Crashline Studios. Basically, we were putting together the studio, and then COVID hit, and then my band was sidelined. We weren't doing anything. And then I remember it was like the first week of COVID, and we just had that awful tornado hit Nashville.
Right.
And
it was all
it was horrible, and it was just trying to like cope. Like, what are we doing here? Like, what is
tornado,
happening?
COVID,
and then we're shutting down, and basically, I remember sitting there talking with one of my good friends who ends up becoming my studio partner years on later. Like, we got to do something. I can't just sit here and not do anything. Like, I have a studio. Like, let's make a record. So I go to my band. I'm like, hey, let's make another record. They weren't interested at all. They're like, nope, life's too crazy right now. We're not touching that. So I call my my buddy who then became my studio partner, and he's like, well, you've been talking about doing television and sync music. Let's make a record.
Wow.
So
perfect. That was the perfect timing.
Yeah, it was once again the divine intervention. My studio partner who's actually a Full Sail alumni as well. His name's Dan Morin. We started talking about this idea of, well, why don't we actually go and do what we wanted to do, because he was the same way. He wanted to get really into television and sync music too. And we were like, well, how do we do it? So because he lived in Florida still, and I was living here in Nashville, and obviously with COVID, when it was in its peak, you weren't really going very far. So we decided we're just going to do it from apart, and we're just going to make a record and see how well it was. So we did all our studying, like what was ideal for sync licensing, like what are the things we need to look out for. We even went and approached some pros, like what are some things we need to know. And the biggest thing they told us is you got to find a library that not only works with your style of music, but you need to find somebody who's willing to work with you, especially since you're brand new. A lot of publishers kind of want surefire things. And if you can find a guy who's willing to work with you and is willing to bring you up and build you up, then you got a great deal going. So that was a really great advice. And so we spent about 4 or 5, 6 months tracking this record, really not knowing what we're doing. We're just trying our best with it. And we sent some feelers out there just to see if we could, here's a teaser of what we can accomplish and see if anyone's interested. We sent it out to about 15 publishers. Only 2 of them got back to us, one of which denied it. But one was like, this is pretty cool. If you can produce 10 more tracks like this, we would love to talk with you. And I'll keep the name private just because of what happens afterwards. But essentially, we got the record done thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to nail this sync deal. Here we go. Here it is. Right. And we submit it to them. We don't hear anything back for about a month. And then they get back to us and like, we're not interested. So we're like,
oh no.
So we're like, well, why'd you say you were interested then? Like, so we got really down on our luck. So we kind of shelved the record idea for a little while. And me and him were just back at the drawing board because my band was like, all right, let's get back rolling. Because like we were starting to kind of open up in 2021, like the very beginning, like we were kind of getting back to it. So we were starting to figure out what the next plan was for the next year. Especially with COVID, it was a little difficult to really navigate how the live show scene was going to look in 2021.
Right.
But what's funny enough was during that process, I just got so fed up again waiting because I going back to that, like, I'm hell bent to figure this out. I just started going online and researching. I'm like, what are things I need? What are libraries that currently do rock music and sync licensing? And I found, I want to say like 60 different libraries that did rock. So I said, okay, here's my day. I'm just going to submit these to all of them and hope something happens. And fingers crossed. And so out of the 60, only 10 of them got back to us. 7 were no, just downright no. 1 wanted to consider it, and they were going to get back to us. But the 2 that said yes were the most important things that ever happened, because the first one that ended up signing our first album, they signed it upright. They just handed us the contract, and it seemed like a pretty fair deal. And we just signed it, and we're like, yeah, we made it. We finally made a sync deal. Let's go. But what was crazy was right after we signed that deal, we had a man by the name of Adam Brostoff who emailed me saying that he had got the record actually landed on his desk, and he was he wanted to talk with us. So we're like, okay. So we sat down with them, and Adam, if anyone knows who he is, he's the CEO of Perfect Time Music Group, and pretty awesome guy overall. Very, very humble dude. And he basically explained to us that he predominantly works in rap music and hip hop and stuff like that, but he's been very intrigued to work in like what he could do with rock music. And our record came across his desk, and he's like, I really like what you guys are doing. And he goes, I'd love to talk about what we could do with this record. And we're like, we wish you hit us up like a day ago because we just signed a deal. And he goes, okay, well, if you guys are ever he's like, if you're ever in the market again, reach out to me. I'm like, before you say that. And I looked at my partner, Dan, and I was like, what if we just made you another one right now? Like, we'll just go to work and start making another record. And he goes, how fast do you think you can get one done? And I was like, I looked at Dan, and Dan's like, he's thinking 5-6 months. I'm like, 3? And he's like, you can make a record in 3 months? I was like, well, if the opportunity is there and you think you can take it to the moon, then yeah, we're gonna make it happen. So he said, let's do it. So he wanted the AC/DC vibe record, like that's what he was looking for, which obviously is up my wheel well.
Yeah.
And basically me and Dan spent 10, 12-hour days on top of working our normal work days, coming home, recording till late in the night, mixing till late in the night, getting up really early in the morning to do final touches. Like, we were probably working at that time 15, 16-hour days to get this record done. And we got it done with 2 weeks to spare, like ahead of time, which was amazing. And so we submitted to him, and he was like, guys, this is even better than the first record. He goes, we're signing this.
Perfect.
And obviously we're like, oh my gosh, we just nailed 2 sync deals. Look at us, we're rocking. And obviously the one thing that they don't tell you, especially with sync music, is that just because you get it signed doesn't mean anything's going to happen to it. And really, we didn't see anything really happen for a while. So, we were starting to worry, like, should we work on another record? So we just said, we'll just do another one. Let's just figure it out. So we started working on the third album at this point. And then all of a sudden, that's when everything changed. So Dan flew up for the holidays to come hang out, and we were going to talk about how we were going to get the rest of this third album done. And New Year's Eve hits, and we're just having a good time celebrating that we just made some big deals for our studio and this and that. And then that next morning, day 1 of 2022, I wake up to an email saying that 3 or 4 of our songs from that album just got placed in the NHL.
Oh, wow.
And it was like big time games. And we're like,
yes.
And Dan's passed out on an air mattress. And I'm like, Dan, we just made it,
Oh my God. That is exciting.
Yeah.
That is a story that everybody should listen, and you just need to keep going. You just got rejected, and then you could stop at the first one that said, oh, we're not interested. You could say, I'm done.
Yeah.
But instead of that, you sent to 60 combined libraries.
60. It was a long day.
And 2 of them, answered.
Only 2 got back. Isn't that crazy?
That is a story that, everybody should listen, because a lot of times musicians say, oh, I will not try anymore. It's not happening.
Yeah.
But then you just have to keep trying and keep trying. The opportunity will be there. And your music was to games that all over America that they were watching, as like hockey and football.
Oh, it's nuts how
and
much
then it
exploded.
got more.
Yeah, we ended, and like from television shows to, the Food Network to like TV shows about muscle cars, and like, we really started exploding, and we're like,
TV show with the cars. I saw that.
It was nuts. We were just like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Like and then from there, last 4 or 5 years, me and Dan have now churned out about 6 or 7 records for Adam in perfect time. And basically we keep telling him, you just tell us when you don't, just tell us what you want. We're going to make it. And what's so wild, because Dan, when I met him at Full Sail, I met him on his very last day of Full Sail, because he graduated from music production as well. But the reason why we connected was because he was wearing a Green Bay Packers hat, and I'm a diehard Packers fan. And we found out with that moment, because we exchanged business cards, that we were actually this whole time living literally 2 buildings over from each other.
Oh my God.
And we're like, you've got to be kidding me. And that spawned this not only this working relationship where we're studio partners now, but we're like dear best friends. Like, he was one of my best men in my wedding, and like he's had my back for years, and I've always had his back. And so there is like so much brotherhood in that connection. And I think that's what really comes out in the music is just this, not only the determination and just the eagerness, but like, we know how to work on each other's strengths and weaknesses so well. And, now that we've done 7 of them or whatever it is now, it's like, it's almost like routine now.
7 records?
Full production albums. Yeah.
For sync.
Yes.
Specific. And are you giving those records to the second company?
Correct.
And
yeah.
what happened with the first one that they signed your first record?
Sure. Yeah. So that one, we actually just decided we were just going to shift gears, because we already had we realized that, Adam was really eager, and he was pushing us and willing to push us farther. So we basically just told them that we could just keep that album in the library, and if they felt like they wanted to push it, go for it.
But you will go with Adam.
Oh, we almost predominantly.
You're still working with Adam.
We still work with him to this day. But what was one of his best advices to me, which I thought was bizarre, because I always thought publishers would be a lot similar to like labels, where they want to have they want to corner something specific and they want to have it only for them. But one of his advices for one of our meetings was, don't put all your eggs in one basket. look around and find other things and see what's going on out there. And funny enough, as of a couple years ago, or about a year ago, I get a call from, if we go back to our conversation about that first record deal I did, I still actually have some music under their stuff as well. They sent me an email. The CEO of that label sent me an email going, "Hey, I just want to let you know, we have this new partnership deal with a company called SyncRunner, and I think your tunes with us would probably do really well with them. You should reach out to them." And so I'm like, all right, cool, let's check it out. So I sent them Hampton Jig, a couple of my solo songs. I think I sent a couple of the songs with my current band just to see what they would say. And they got back to us and they're like, "No, we want your music. Like, let's do this." So, it was so crazy because like Christmas Day, we were signing the deal for the SyncRunner thing to happen. And I looked at my bandmates and I was like, I don't think I ever thought about this, but every single project I've ever been in now officially has a sync home. It's such a weird thing to think about. And they've been working with all my artistry, the artist stuff, and we still do the work with Adam. And like, so now at this point, it's just like, where do we need to produce more? And where do we see it working? Where do we don't see it working? And now we're just kind of navigating the ship.
Yeah, as I understand, you work with many companies, but your sound is the same. So you have this rock 80s sound with like the electric guitar.
Yes.
What will your advice be for artists that they want to start doing it?
Sure. Don't give up. That's no, and it sounds very basic and blunt, but
yes.
Don't give up, because there was 100 times in my life. Actually, it was funny enough. I just did this. Someone asked me this recently. There's been 100 times in my career where I was gonna hang it up, just be done, and I was like, it's just not working. I gotta stop. And there were so many people who told me to give it up. There were so many people who said, "You're done. You've already had the one hit. Be happy you had
They
that."
said that to you?
Oh yeah, that people are brutal.
Who said that to you?
A lot of people who don't go for their own dreams. But
oh no.
But the one thing I realized was, over this journey, I think we were talking a little bit off camera about, was the one thing I've realized is that everything culminates to something. And if you're going through all these hard times and all these hard battles, all these no's all the time, it's leading you to something beautiful. And I had every opportunity to take that exit and leave and go find a job somewhere else and get out of the music industry. But for some reason, I woke up every day going, nope, put the shoes on and get back out there and do it again. And I just, that's the biggest thing with sync licensing, is like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's not going to happen in a year. You may get lucky. Like, I got lucky. It happened, I think, in 11 months. That's really, really young for a sync artist to get that.
Very young.
Usually it takes years.
Yes.
And I got lucky, and I just want people to know, just because it happened for me that early doesn't mean it will happen for you. Maybe it'll happen earlier. Maybe you get lucky and it's 2 months. Sync licensing is such a wild world, and if you want it bad enough, just keep doing it and just keep trying to perfect it. Keep trying to hone your craft. Keep trying to make it better. I mean, that's the one thing that we always try to do with these sync records is, okay, well, what can we do better to make these albums sound better? And what are things that we're noticing, or what are something that maybe Adam or another publisher of ours is noticing? And we listen to them, and they'll be blunt with you. Like, if you get denied by a publisher, just ask why. And 90% of the time, they'll just be like, either A, it wasn't our taste, or B, the production wasn't there.
Right.
And sometimes that's a hard thing to realize, especially if you're a graduate of a school or something like that, and you have your own studio. It'd be hard pill to swallow.
Sometimes it's also luck. Like you said with Adam, he didn't have somebody with his sound, and he was looking for that sound, and maybe that popped up the moment he was looking for that sound.
Exactly.
So I feel like in music, it's a lot of times luck.
It is a lot of luck. And
yes.
You're right. Absolutely right. And but the one thing is, my opinion has always been, everyone gets that one shot. And as long as you stay the course and you keep trying to go for it, at some point you're gonna get that one door to open, and whatever either you walk in it or you close it, and that is completely on you. I do believe in that one shot you get. So that would be my biggest advice for anybody is just keep trying. Just keep going for it. Try different things. If the rock thing isn't working for you, try some cinematic stuff. Or, if that's not working for you, try some hip hop. Like, find things that get you excited. And then from there, hone in how you can make that great. And then, like I said, your first record ain't going to probably be amazing, because I did not realize the amount of work that it takes, especially to do a sync record. I mean, you're talking like 50 tracks. It's a lot. And I mean,
it's a lot.
Yeah,
it's a lot of hours.
And our first record was like 10 songs.
You did the you did the production and the writing, everything.
Everything in-house.
You're doing it.
Myself and Dan. We do it together. Yes.
Both the mastering and mixing and everything.
Everything in-house. So I mean, now we've got it down to a science where we're not doing it in 3 months anymore, because we're taking a little more time to produce the record a little more nicely and get things a little better correctly. But we got it down to about 5 months, I think, is kind of like our good medium.
Still good time.
Yeah, and honestly, you do need a couple months after it, because, I mean, I've done the album after album after album, and it does take a big toll on you. And on top of that, I have a band where I'm doing records with them too. So it's like, if I'm not working on production music, I'm in the studio with them. So it's like everyday work, but I love it.
If you put a record with sync, you cannot publish it as an artist, right? So it has to be private with a sync company, or you can also have the songs on Spotify or public.
It depends on the deal.
It
very much depends on the deal. How do I put it? Like, so for instance, like the Sync Runner deal that I have, all that stuff gets released on all the major platforms, and it's by the artists that I'm with or the projects I'm on. But then, like, you take an album that I did with Perfect Time, that's not even, my name's not even associated with it, besides the composer, production credits, and stuff like that. And that's what I want. That's what you ideally want with a deal like that, because that is an exclusive deal. Okay. So there are non-exclusive sync deals. There's also exclusive sync deals. The biggest thing is when you go to sign something like that, obviously I was in good faith with him and knowing that he wasn't going to try to screw us over or anything like that, because of the conversations we had with him, and honestly the proof's in the pudding type of deal. Yeah. But yeah, so there are multiple deals that exist, but the biggest thing is, don't be afraid if you take a deal where they go, no, it's just going to be our publisher's name on it, and you're going to get like a 50% split on it. If it's your first deal, like, don't be afraid to take that shot. Don't be too reserved to want to take all your rights, because having 100% of nothing is nothing, but having 50% of thousands is still a lot of money. And and the opportunities that are going to open for you and the doors that will open for you from that will allow you to eventually negotiate a better deal. So I know there's people out there who will probably ridicule me for saying that, but look, it worked for it. That's what's worked for me. And I always say, if you feel good about something and it's in your gut, that you're like, yeah, you know what, I'm willing to take that initial hit for long-term longevity, then yeah, I say go for it.
Perfect. I love that. I love the motivation there. It's funny because we were talking about this before we start the podcast, and it was very nice. I just want to mention now with the camera that you said, my goal is to motivate people. And that was one of the nicest things I've heard. Because it's different to do music because you love it. You do it because you love it. But it's very nice that you also want to motivate people. And you will be happy feeling that you achieve your goals, because if you motivate 1 or 5 people, and that's amazing.
It's funny. So Create Studios has their podcast, like I mentioned to you, where we interview some people. But the episode that we're about to put out stars a band called Butter and Grit that are here in Nashville. Also, by the way, great name. But they said one of the greatest things of all time, because the one thing I've always said since the beginning, like I mentioned to you, is if there's any goal that I have besides seeing that dream that I had when I was 7 years old realized, is I want to inspire the uninspired, and I want to inspire people to see that through my journey, that if you want to go do this, you can do it. Because if I can do it, you can do it. And the one thing that they mentioned in that podcast I thought was so, so good was they go, if you're trying to find your identity in music, you're doing life wrong as an artist, because your identity is not attached to who you are as a musician. the idea is always been to leave something behind that's bigger and better than you, and that can make a lasting impact on people anywhere, whether that be one person, 5 people, 1,000, 100,000, whatever. That's the goal. The goal is to is to resonate with people and inspire change. And I thought that was so cool, because that's always been me, is like, I want people to look at what I've done, and whether they think it's minute in comparison to some huge artists or whatever, I just want people to see that it is very possible to be someone who started with literally nothing and can build a career in this industry, because it can be very daunting. And when you're not in Nashville or LA or Seattle or one of the big music capitals of the world, a lot of kids out there are very much discouraged from trying to pursue this. And
Of course.
And I think it's horrible, because it is a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, but like, that shouldn't discourage you. That should encourage you,
Yeah.
pursue it. Because you know what? Yeah, maybe you don't do it for the rest of your life, but you at least attempted it. You tried it, and and look how much you have to show for it.
Right.
And that's always been my biggest thing, is like, if I write a song, or someone looks at what I've done and goes, if Jordan can do it, then I can do it. To me, then I've succeeded.
Yes, that's very nice. I'm gonna go to your band now.
Okay.
Except everything else that you're doing. You're working here. You have your own studio. You write for Sing. You have your band.
Correct.
Hungry and Dangerous.
There it is.
There, I love the title.
We always make the joke that we're always full and content, because we're me and the guys have been doing this for so long now. We're not so skinny anymore.
I really want to know how the title came up. What is
Yeah.
behind that story? I was really curious.
So, Hungry and Dangerous started as a song that I was writing at Full Sail. Originally was titled Angels Playing Demons, which I thought was such a cool song, because it was inspired by the movie Angels and Demons, by the Dan Brown novel. And I'm a huge fan of his work. And the idea of the song was just basically like to write about the energy of a night when your life's going to change forever. And that was the idea of the song, of like, you have this feeling in you that something, like, you have this energy in you that you can't for some reason figure out, and it just feels like you're on the cusp of something life-changing. And I wrote probably 9 or 10 different versions of this song at Full Sail, and what was so bizarre to me was I hated the song. I absolutely hated it. I was like, nope, we're going to throw this in the inbox, and it is what it is. And then, flash forward a few years later, I'm on tour with my a band called Suspicious Minds, and we're in there. I'm at a show in New Jersey. I'm playing at this random bar, and one of my old buddies from I used to play with in that original band, Horseman 5, the drummer's name was Matt Lewis, and he happened to come out to the show. And he's like, hey, man, I just graduated from, I forget what school he went to. I think it was Keene. But he's now doing session work. And he's like, I'd love to maybe write with you sometime. I was like, let's do it. So at the time, I only had a couple songs I was toying with, but this was one of them. And I was like, here's a demo. It might be cool. It might not. He loved it. He goes, we should do this as the first song. And I was like, but I'm
Wow.
only going to put it under me as like a solo thing. Because at that time, I was very big on doing the solo career. So
I guess because of your experiences with previous bands.
Yeah, I was kind of over the band thing. It was just too much to always keep people going.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm just going to do a solo thing, but you are more I'd love to have you as my drummer, and you can retain rights and this and that. And I'll make it a good deal for you. It was awesome. So we recorded the song Hungry and Dangerous. The reason why I changed the name was I was actually just kind of thinking about what the song was about, and there was lyrics in there. We're the hungry, we're the dangerous, we're the inspired. This and that was one of the lines, and Matt was like, "Angels Playing Demons doesn't make sense." He goes, "With the song," he goes, "You're hungry and determined." I'm like, "No, more like hungry and dangerous." And he's like, "Yeah, that's the name of the song." So I was like, "That's actually kind of cool. It's catchy." So we rewrote the lyrics to what it is now to make it more about hungry and dangerous. So I go to the studio that I was Diamond Sound, the one I had the job at when I first came to Nashville. I basically got a room to do some photos, and I took this one shot of me with a leather jacket on and glasses on, and I had a buddy of mine take it, edit it, and he put this really, really cool logo on it. And it just said The Hungry and Dangerous, nothing else, just said that. So when we announced the single, myself and Matt got flooded with our inboxes of just Facebook, social media, Instagram, you name it. Can't wait to hear the new band. Can't wait to hear the new band.
Oh.
And I'm like, I got so tired of telling people, like, it's not a band, it's a single. It's a single. It's a solo single. And at one point I looked at Matt and I go, it's a band, isn't it? And he goes, it's a band. I'm like, dang it, I'm in another band.
I love that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tired of bands, and then the next day, it's like, okay,
It's a band.
it's a band.
So that's kind of how the story. So we always make the joke when we're playing live, like the fans named the band because this was supposed to be Jordan
The
Taylor
name of
Moed
the
as a
song.
solo. Yeah.
Had the need to release some steam while fighting hard to stay redeemed. We can feel it in the air tonight while every reason close in sight.
So after that song, you're creating the album.
Yes. So so we did the first song. We wanted to go shoot a video and everything for it, and we're going back now into COVID times. So this was right when everything was shutting down. Right before COVID hit, I actually went and grabbed coffee with a couple local engineers just to kind of talk shop and tell them about the new studio I was working in. And one of them was by the name of Tristan Roberts. He was an MTSU grad. And me and him instantly just became friends because we both spoke the same language. We both had the same drive. And the one thing I really liked about him was that he was really good at mixing. And he had helped me on some of my solo stuff that I had put out. I had did a couple solo singles before Hungry and Dangerous kind of came a thing. He helped me out with them. And I was like, dude, I want to do a record with you. And he's like, let's do it. And so that's what morphed into the Hungry and Dangerous record. But where that music kind of stemmed from was I was writing this record for the band I was currently in. And I had written a full album. And I was like, here we go. Let's just go in the studio and do it. And then COVID hit and they were like, no, we're good. So I said, well, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And that's when we released Hungry and Dangerous, the single. And then Matt and I were like, all right, well, COVID's not going to stop us. And he's like, let's go ahead and go make this happen. So we tracked the entire record over the summer of 2020 and during the peak of COVID. And then we completed it in 2021. Basically, we had two singles come out, which was Hungry and Dangerous and Insomniacs.
Right.
And Insomniacs caught wind of a European record label called Dioptima Records. And they were doing distribution through a bigger label called Rock Shots, which is pretty well known over in Europe. And they basically wanted to put the album out. And they're like, well, how far do you want to go with this? I'm like, I want this record, if possible, and it's going to sound crazy in 2025, but I was like, I want these in stores everywhere. I'm like, if you guys are as big as you say you are, I want this literally where I walk down to McKay's or Great Escape or Grimey's or whatever, and I want to walk in there and be able to actually buy my own album. And they go, okay. Cool. So they gave us the deal. It was quite a bit of money up front for us to do that, but I knew what we were going to get out of it. And I'll never forget it to this day. That album came out in 2022, July of 2022. I remember driving down to West Nashville, going to the Great Escape, and I'm like, I'm here for one thing only, for my album. And I walked up and I found it in there, and I was like, oh my God, this is the moment. So I walked up and bought the album and everything, and I was like, this is what it feels like. This is it. I'm living the dream.
How did you feel?
It was so my wife came with me, and we had to hunt for a little bit. So finding that was a little rough. And basically we walked in, we searched for about 20 minutes, and I'm like, where's your new releases at? And they go, oh, it's over here. This is this. I'm like, rock music. Where's that at? And they go, over here. So I ran over there, we dug it, and then also I'm like, oh my God, I actually found it. I was like, this is awesome. So I bought it right then and there, and I remember picking it up out of the bag, going, like, thinking about like all the AC/DC records I bought, all the Motley Crue records I bought, all the Kiss records I've bought over the years, and I'm like, Hungry and Dangerous is officially like that. We're part of that now. People can go to, you can find it in a store near you like that. And I remember a buddy of mine who I went on his podcast to talk about this, and he was like, dude, you're an FYE, you have made it.
Yeah.
Which was so wild. So that was like one of the coolest moments of my life.
That is cool.
Yeah.
And that was nice that you were sharing that moment with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I do everything with her. Like,
that's nice.
I'm so blessed to have like the greatest wife of all time. Like,
oh, that's nice.
she's always been my number one supporter, but like anything I may lack in,
Right.
like when it comes to the career side of things, whether it be photography or whatever, she will find a way to help me with it. She's like, all right, I'm going to teach myself photography tomorrow, and we're going to go do this. Or, oh, you need help with social media? I'm going to study algorithms so I can help you with that. And like, oh, you need a merch girl? I'll sit here all night, go network. And she's just that type of girl. And, I couldn't really have gotten here without her.
That's very nice. That's very nice. It's really important to have somebody who supports you, especially when you're a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And, that word is hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of competition. You need to have, guts to do it.
And, especially when you're starting out as a new band in today's world. I know a lot of people can relate to that. It's not that easy anymore. I mean, like, people say it's so much easier nowadays to do it with, the worlds of social media. I'm like, maybe starting a band. I'm like, but getting heard, like, I feel like I had way more chances to get heard when I was younger. And especially I'm in my 30s now. It's like I feel like anytime I do something, even if it's really well produced or this and that, it's like it's still like throwing, something at the wall hoping that it sticks, because you may have a fan base, but that fan base is only going to be so big, especially with the genre that we do. It's kind of a niche genre, and we know that, but that's the reason why we got into it, is because we love it. And we just, as of literally this week, we literally just finished our second record.
Oh, you did?
And then that's literally breaking news.
Breaking news.
Yeah, we just officially finished it, and I actually.
When is it dropping?
So that's the question we're asking right now. So
Okay.
we recently started working with a new company called UAC. They're out of London. They handle all the Hungry and Dangerous stuff right now. Believe it or
So
not,
it's different company than the previous.
Yeah,
The previous company, did they found you or you found them?
they found us.
Okay.
They found
That's
us
real
through.
good.
It's very bizarre how that. Yeah. So, Dioptima found us through our debut single, "Hungry and Dangerous," and they loved the sound, they loved the vibe, and they wanted to work with us. How do I word this? It did not end very well.
Okay.
It was one of those things where it was like a lesson learned type attitude, but basically we had the opportunity to live that moment I told you about, and then afterwards it was like, we're gonna put you on the shelves, and now we're not gonna do anything else for you.
Okay.
And
So you found this company now that...
well, we didn't find them either, so that's the other thing, is
They found you
us
again.
So we released this song in 2023 called "Young at Heart," which got some noteworthy airplay and stuff like that, and really kind of took us off to the next level. And the guy who runs that company, his name is Haristo Penchev. It was very well known in the music world and stuff like that. He heard that song and reached out to us. I thought it was actually spam when I first got it. I'm like, cool, what are you trying to sell me? Like, what is it? Boosting, bots or whatever? No, I'm not interested. And he's like, no. He's like, I really want to talk with you. I think we can do something here. And we had like 5 or 6 meetings with him. And I remember I was like, look, man, I already have sync deals. We have this going on. We have distribution. We don't need any of that stuff. Like, what makes you think I want to jump with you? And he laid out like a 6-month plan of social media marketing strategy, this and that. And, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I'm like, what's that going to cost? So he, threw a number out there. I thought it was actually pretty lucrative for what it was. We negotiated it a little down, and which was crazy that he was still willing to talk with us after that. But yeah, we ended up coming to an agreement, and they signed us as of January of this year. And we had already been kind of tracking and writing the second album at that point, and he knew that was coming up. But basically, we just finished, like I said, the record as of this week, and actually I was mastering it here at Create It. So that was kind of a cool little little thing. So if you're listening to it and like it, come master your records at Create It. But
That's amazing.
yeah, and I think the plan is to put it out in 2026. We're gonna release a couple more singles for the year though.
That's perfect. Good luck.
Yeah, thank you.
And another thing I want to talk about is the last video clip that you dropped.
Oh,
with your
Detonator, is that it? Yeah.
What is the story behind that song?
Yeah, so Detonator was written as, actually, when I was telling you about the label, that was like, we were all really kind of, the band was in a really dark time because we got shelved by the only label that ever really believed in us. And they acted like they did us a favor type of attitude, which was, that really hit me in the ego pretty hard. And as somebody who has been building this for so many years, that's something you don't want to hear. But the one thing I realized was I'm ticked off, and I'm like, I remember Alice Cooper always saying, like, if you're ticked off, you need to be writing music. So we got together, and I said, I know we're all angry, but let's put this in a studio.
Oh,
And that whole song is just pure seeing red. That's really what it is, seeing red in anger. And you know, I remember when I was recording that one, I actually almost hurt my vocal cords because I was screaming so hard because I was just so angry. And I remember Joe, my bass player who has the beard, who's in the video, he looked at me and goes, do that again.
And I was always wondering about the vocals